We break down everything that the Chicago Bears can do with the first pick next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Rate 5 stars if you're listening to the podcast. It helps tremendously. Ladies and gents, happy offseason. This is our first episode. We're still going to go live 7:30 on Thursdays and 7:30 on Sundays. Thought I'd throw in a little extra episode and just kind of break down everything that the Bears can do with the first round pick, right? With the first pick, there's only so much we can do. There's only so many crucial prospects. And that's why I'm like, hey, let's just break this down. This will be your one-stop shop that you can kind of see everything that you need to and hear what you need to about these prospects and also what they might do from a trade perspective and just kind of break it down a little bit easier. So also, as always, make sure to let me know down in the comments what you think, because there's really no right answer. It's really just breaking down what we could potentially do as the Chicago Bears. So like I said, make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get this show on the road. So with this first pick, what can we do? Because the world is our oyster. We're going to hear it all the way until April. With the first pick, the first option, the first scenario that we can do is draft none other than Will Anderson, defensive end, junior from Alabama. So some people might have never heard of him. If you haven't, Will Anderson is the guy in this draft. He's seen as, last year, he was kind of seen as the number one guy that even if you need a quarterback, you should take this player. This guy is unbelievable. He's a defensive end, 6'4", 243, and the best comp to me is Von Miller. Just think of Von Miller where he's a little lighter in frame, but he can get to the quarterback. Will Anderson, 37 sacks in 3 years at Alabama. Alabama, the group that has 5 stars up the wazoo, he's able to get 37 sacks. And the way that he does this is just with next level explosiveness and speed and burst. And this is the reason why the Bears want him, right? This is the reason why a lot of people are saying this is the guy to get at number 1. Now, we'll break down the other people as well that they could potentially get. But really, Will Anderson seems to be that defensive end that we could get that really kind of solidifies that line. And I also want to bring this up, too, because we are talking about this right now, January 10th. The draft is in April, late April. We're still 3.5 months away. Will Anderson, to me, even though that the draft can change and everyone can go up and down, Will Anderson, unless God forbid he suffers a big injury, he's going to be a top 3, top 4 type of pick because of his just level of dominance. Also, the free agency class is very weak at this edge defensive end group. We broke this down already, but this is where Will Anderson is going to be really nice for the Bears because I could see them solidifying the defensive tackles. But as defensive ends, this would be a great addition at that number 1 spot. Also, what are his weaknesses, right? Some people have a lot of questions about him being 243 pounds. We'll see what he weighs in at the combine, but that's where it's a little light for his size, and especially with someone that just overpowers players, that's where there's some question marks. Can he do that at the NFL level? Everything that I've seen on tape says yes. When he goes against NFL caliber teams, he's able to dominate. That's where he's just a very, very good, kind of safe prospect, if you will, at that number 1 spot. Also, another big question. I saw some scouts say, hey, he's used in a lot of stunts, so Alabama kind of schemes up some of the sacks. That's where I see where they're coming from, but it is just one of the red flags that everybody wants to gather as many red flags as they can about prospects, and that's just one of the flags that has come up. Overall, though, for a first scenario, this is amazing, guys. Will Anderson, a Von Miller type of prospect for the Bears, he's actually my favorite player in this draft, and that's why I really like him. But if you follow the draft, and Will Anderson isn't your favorite, this guy might be your next one. So let's go to scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 is the Bears draft defensive tackle out of the national champion, two-time national champion, Georgia Bulldogs, junior, 6'3", 310, Jalen Carter. Now, Jalen Carter at that same elite tier as a Will Anderson. Now, with him, he's just the most dominant player in college football right now. Just absolutely the most disruptive player in 2023, hands down. That's why at the beginning of the season, Will Anderson was number 1 and kind of stayed up there, maybe dipped to 2 and 3. But Jalen Carter was at like 5 or 5 to 10 and has soared up draft boards. And a lot of people have him as the number 1 prospect because he's been so dominant. I think PFF has him ranked as the 3rd highest rated defensive interior player this year and out of all colleges. So he's been dominant in the SEC for Georgia. His comp, Warren Sapp. I've seen this in other spots. Warren Sapp, the Hall of Fame D tackle, Hall of Fame 3 technique for a Tampa 2 system. That's where, to me, when you talk about the right fits, right? Will Anderson is a great prospect, my favorite. But Jalen Carter, that 3 technique for the Flus defense, I guarantee you Eberflus is looking at him going, licking his chops saying, I like this guy. I really want this guy for part of my defense. And that's why Jalen Carter is not going to be outside of the top 5, right? He's going to go top 5 easily. And that's why a lot of people are talking, if the Bears were to draft someone, it's really down to Anderson and Jalen Carter. That's really what a lot of people are looking at. And watch some of the tape. There's a lot of highlights out there. And also just let me know. Like, I'm kind of curious, who is your favorite prospect that's coming out that we can get with this number 1 pick? Because Jalen Carter and Will Anderson really kind of have that locked in. Jalen Carter also dominant run and pass defender. But now let's go, and also dominant first step. How can I forget that? His first step, that's the reason why he's kind of comped to Warren Sapp. You got this guy that's 310. He beats everybody with his first step quickness, and that's where he just takes it to the next level. Even when he had Jordan Davis around him and also having Devontae Wyatt, he was getting a lot of snaps, and a lot of people, myself included, were going, who's that 88 guy? Because that seems to be the prize over these other phenomenal defensive tackles. So let's flip the script, though. Let's go over to the cons. Why should we be nervous, right? There's no such thing as a perfect prospect. Now, Jalen Carter, to me, his weakness is his health. His health, and also I'm a bit concerned about his playing time. He hasn't played over 500 snaps in a season. Now, the big reason is because Georgia has a big rotation of defensive tackles. Now, the reason that kind of scares me a little bit is with Will Anderson, he's playing almost next to 1,000 snaps a season, right? He's playing out there all the time. Jalen Carter gets to have some rest. And if you think about it, if you and I are fighting, right, and one person has it, and you have a tag team, you're going to kick my butt, right? You're going to take a breather and come back and fight. I don't see enough people talking about this. It's not saying that Jalen Carter, oh my God, bust watch. It's just saying if I'm drafting number 1, I just want to make sure it's safe. And Will Anderson seems to be the safer pick, even though Jalen Carter has been phenomenal. It's weird to say Jalen Carter not as safe because he's still amazing. He's still absolutely incredible. But it is something that is a little concerning because he hasn't played over 500 snaps in a season. Had, I believe, an MCL injury this year, and that's what kind of kept him off. And then last year, he had Davis and Wyatt, so he didn't get to play as much, but still looked dominant. Also, other kind of weak points, weak base, so a little bit weak in the hips. Needs to get a little thicker in the legs and the butt, and also just has some struggles with some double teams. So that's where you're hoping that he can just play as that 3 technique, and then he hopefully can get more 1 gaps and kind of one person guarding him, and then hopefully he can then dominate that. So like we said, this is a very good top 2. But now, what else? What else is there? Because we have Will Anderson, we have Jalen Carter, but why is there 4? Now it's going to pain me to say this, but I want to talk about this because this is coming up. This is coming up a whole lot, and we need to discuss this. So please bear with me when I say the third scenario is the Bears draft quarterback Bryce Young out of Alabama. Now, as I'm saying that, I can feel my heart beating and kind of ripping at the seams. I don't think that this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wanted to at least talk about it. This is the reason why I want to bring this up, because Ryan Poles is going to look at everything that's out there. And today, I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 10th. Ryan Poles basically was like, we're going to have to be blown away if we are going to draft someone over Justin Fields. So I think this is really unlikely, but I know people are going to talk about this. And there was a leak from Brad Biggs saying, hey, one of the most plugged in people in the Chicago Bears front office was saying, hey, guess what? It sounds like the Bears aren't 100% on Fields, right? We're going to have to listen to this. We're going to have to see. It's just because Poles says something doesn't mean it's for certain, right? There were some things that he said about Roquan Smith that ended up not being true. Not saying he's a liar or anything like that, but there's some fine lines here that could potentially be crossed, and there's something as GM speak. But why? Let's actually just analyze, why would this ever happen, right? Why would this happen? Because Bryce Young, honestly, is a really good prospect. When you watch him at quarterback, the biggest comp is Russell Wilson. A good Russell Wilson, right? He's 6 foot, 194. He's a very, very lightweight guy. And that's obviously his biggest weakness is his size. But I also forgot to update the strength on the graphic. So his first step is not his actual biggest strength. It's his accuracy. And actually, it's his IQ, I would say, is his biggest strength. So ignore his first step quickness on this graphic. But it's really the IQ. That's the reason why a lot of coordinators are obsessing over him. And that's also why we'll go into my fourth scenario. The Bears can trade for a lot for Bryce Young because offensive coordinators are looking at him going, I can just give him my offense. I can hand it to him, and he's going to run it the way it should be ran. He's a quick processor, so he's going to be able to get the ball out fast and understand where everything needs to go. He also, for being short, typically shorter quarterbacks struggle in the middle of the field. He excels at it. So he's really kind of breaking that mold. He's got enough agility and enough mobility that you want in that next level. So when you look at him, he checks the box for IQ. He checks the box for accuracy. He checks the box for mobility. But where is he falling? It's his height, but also his arm strength is not elite. So think of it kind of like Tua, honestly, kind of like Tua, where Tua did not have the arm, but Tua was accurate and he understood where to go. Bryce Young, to me, is more intelligent than Tua, but Tua had a larger body of work. I mean, Bryce Young, yet again, scratch that, has 2 years of absolutely incredible play. So that's why Bryce Young is so high up on a lot of draft boards, and that's why a lot of people really, really want this guy. And the reason, like we said, Brad Biggs was saying, hey, I heard something from the Bears, but I got to say, too, I was listening to a national show, and they're saying, what would you do right now? And this was before anything came out. They're like, and they don't know the Bears too much. They were saying, I would kind of whisper something, and you have to pretend, you have to make people think you're interested in Bryce Young. And I think that's what the Bears are trying to do. So that's why I don't think that the Bears end up getting Bryce Young, but I think they might show interest, quote unquote. Here, I'll even go zoom in on myself, quote unquote, so that people think that they're interested, and then it rises up the price. When someone says, like, yeah, we're not interested in these quarterbacks, people then go, okay, I'll just wait till the next person. I'll just wait to the next pick or so. So they need to show some interest so it drives up that price. But yeah, overall though, Bryce Young, good prospect, very good quarterback prospect. Another reason also, just because I want to get it all out on the table, why people are saying that the Bears would look at Bryce Young and trade Fields. If they were to trade Fields, some GMs are saying it's at least a 1, and that's nice, but we've seen what Justin Fields is capable of. If the Bears don't believe Fields is the guy, I could see them trading. But he's shown you everything. So I don't know what else he needs to show you for you to want to get rid of him, right? But if you trade him, you could maybe get a first and a third. You probably wouldn't be able to get 2 firsts. That's what the GM said as well. You're not going to get 2 firsts. You're going to get about a first and a third for Justin Fields. So to me, that might not be worth it. But another reason why people are talking about it is because if you draft Bryce Young and you trade Fields, you're going to get 4 years of a rookie contract rather than the 2 that you have with Justin Fields. So that's where some people really like it. And the analytics community actually loves doing this because once you hit the quarterback, everything else goes easy. But to me, I want to see Fields. I didn't want to talk about it this long, but I did. But really, I want to see Fields out there because he's got the superstar tendencies. Let me know what you think, because I know that there's a lot of people that don't believe in Fields because of his processing. So when you hear that Bryce Young has super fast processing power out here like a computer, kind of makes you think, dang, right? And even Getty might be going, I could probably put some stuff around that, right? And make that offense really kind of come together. So that's the reason why it's out there. That's the reason why it's being discussed. Because potentially hype, and it could even be real. It could be real. So we're going to be hearing this for a long time. This is why I just wanted to get all the trade talk, all the draft talk kind of out of the way. But let's go to what I think everybody's most excited about. The last and fourth scenario out there, the trades. So the Bears, this is what I feel everybody kind of wants, the trade down. Who are they going to be trading with? Now, really, when you're looking at who they can trade with, it's kind of limited to just the top 10. Once you get outside of the top 10, it really starts to get difficult because even though that outside of the top 10, the Titans might be looking at a quarterback, the Jets, the Patriots, the Commanders at 16, even the Packers at 15, the Lions again, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 19. There's a lot of teams out there that need a quarterback, but when you run it through just like a draft value chart, really anything outside of the top 10, they're really going to have to package it up with like multiple first rounders or as many as you can package up and probably even a player. So if we're outside of the top 10, we are getting a haul. So that would be really exciting to see, but that's why I think outside of the top 10 is most likely unlikely for this team. But also, I forgot my biggest point about this whole trade down thing. Let's be patient because there's not going to be a trade until after pro days, after the combine, after free agency. Then someone's going to want to trade up and then try and get that guy. So that's why we got to be patient with this. Otherwise, we're going to be mock draft to death because we're going to see so many trades out there, so many random mock drafts. That's why until April, that's really when you're going to, I think you can start to kind of see, are we trading or why isn't Poles doing anything with the trades? Because there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks on the open market in free agency, and that's going to dictate what happens. But let's talk about the spots we could go. First off, there's number 2 to the Texans and kind of dangle that. Say, remember this pick? You had it for all season. And now we got it thanks to you guys. Do I think that the Texans would trade up? I think it's unlikely. That's just my opinion, though. Because if I'm the GM, imagine it having your tail between your legs going up to them saying, hey, can I trade up? Because we'd really like to trade up. And we really, really want Bryce Young. Is there any way we can? Because who needs Will Levis, who's kind of the second quarterback that a lot of people are looking at? I think that it could happen, though. The only way that I think it could happen is if they traded Brandon Cooks, who wants out of the Texans, but he doesn't want to go to a rebuild situation. Maybe, depending on how free agency goes, the Bears don't really look like a rebuild, and he ends up going, okay, I'll go to the Bears, right? I see that as a little bit nicer because you're getting rid of someone that doesn't want to be there, and you're giving away the second pick, and you're moving up. Maybe there's going to be a couple more things that are kind of tied into it, But that's where I think that could be a scenario where the Texans end up trading up. But the next one that I think everybody wants is the Colts. At number 4, we talked about it. There's really 2 elite prospects in this draft, Jalen Carter and Will Anderson. So at this 4th pick in the draft, the Colts need a quarterback. They've had so many stopgaps. I could see the Colts, especially with the Eberflus connection, calling up Flus and being like, hey, we're tired of living in mediocrity. We need a quarterback. We're tired of getting everybody sloppy seconds. Let's get a quarterback. And that's where I really think that the Bears are going to trade with the Colts. I think that there's a very good chance it's going to be the Colts at number 4 because of the Eberflus connection and because they're really desperate for a quarterback right now. And that's why I think they're going to want to trade up. Like I said, basically in the top 10, I think everybody needs a quarterback minus the Arizona Cardinals at 3. And something that we're going to be talking about and thinking about is, what would the Cardinals do? What do the Cardinals want? Because if we traded with the Colts, if we traded, let's just say, with the Seahawks, right? Do they like Geno Smith? I think they do, and I don't think they're actually going to trade up, but it is something to at least see and monitor the Geno Smith situation. But that's where the Cardinals pick is going to be vital, because if the Cardinals really like Will Anderson, we're getting Jalen Carter. If they really like Jalen Carter, we're going to get Will Anderson. So yet again, either way, I'm fine with it, but that's where I really do think that number 4 pick with the Colts is going to be where the Bears ultimately end up trading. Some other spots, number 6 to the Lions. I don't know if you're going to trade that or want to trade that within the division, but if it were to go to the Lions, you'd probably get their other first-round draft pick in order to move back down to the 6th spot, and then a handful of other draft picks as well. But the other spots are really later on inside of there as well. The Raiders at 7, the Falcons at 8. But still, they might want to try Desmond Ridder a little bit there. But the Raiders for sure need a quarterback, and I could see them being the other desperate team to move up. And then the Panthers are final and last at the 9th pick overall. But still, we need to see who's going to be the coach for the Panthers officially moving forward. And that's where, if I had to put my money, I think that the Colts have the biggest chance. Then I think maybe the Raiders, and then maybe the Panthers and Texans. Actually, maybe then the Texans, right? But this is where it's so exciting for the Bears, because you can call up these teams and say, listen, I'm talking to all these QB needy teams. I'm talking to the Colts, and this is what the Colts are offering me, Texans. What do you want? Or you go to the Colts and say, hey, Texans want this. What are you going to give to me? So really, there is so much that the Bears can do. And I really do think no matter where it is, you have whatever it is, the world is your oyster. The only thing that could happen that's bad is if they traded back and they didn't get enough. That's something that I could see. Is Ryan Poles, with some of these trades, he's not getting enough back, a lot of people are saying, right? Myself included. I think that he needs to get more in these trades, and that's where this will be very interesting to see. What can you do? It's all on Poles, and that's what is going to make this so exciting. So on Thursday, we are going to go back off from the draft and start wrapping up this season. We're going to be giving out our end of season awards. So you're going to want to make sure to tune in and chime in live at 7:30 on YouTube, because we're going to be breaking down everything and giving out some really fun and cool awards out to these different players. But everyone, thank you so much. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. Thank you all for coming back. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's